of Leavenworth USD 453 School District. The date is July 13th, 2026, and the time is 6 p.m. Do roll call. Ms. Brown?
Present.
Mr. Darling?
Present.
Ms. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Ms. Wells?
Here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
And I'm here. And welcome, Dr. Rettelberger.
Thank you.
All right, we're all here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Dr. Rettelberger, would you please read us the mission of Leavenworth Public Schools?
I would be happy to. The mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Thank you. Okay, moving to scheduled patron input.
We are pleased you have joined us tonight to celebrate student and staff achievement, hear informational presentations and reports, and observe consideration of policy decisions and administrative recommendations specific to the Leavenworth Unified School District. We set aside time in each regularly scheduled board meeting to hear from the public. Comments should address board policies, the procedures our administrators established to carry out those policies, as opposed to individual complaints to investigate and resolve. Please understand that while board members will listen to and carefully consider all your comments, board members will not immediately respond to questions either verbally or through gestures, for example, raising hands in response to questions, nor will they engage in dialogue of answer and response during the patron input time this evening. This is not an appropriate time or place for patrons to make comments of a personal nature about any district employee or student by name. Persons making comments which violate the privacy rights of district employees or students will be asked to terminate their remarks. If speakers have concerns specific to an individual student or staff member, please make an appointment with the superintendent. Those concerns will be documented and shared with the board. Each patron is reminded they have 3 minutes to speak and will be given notice when 15 seconds remain. If a group is in attendance with the same interest, we ask that a spokesperson be appointed to deliver the group's message. As a unified board committed to desired outcomes for our school community, we ask that comments not be directed at individual board members, but addressed to the board as a whole. Thank you for taking time to address district business and policies with the board.
All right, thank you. So first up, we have Ms. Kayla Martin. Okay, we have Mr. Gabe Mesa.
Good evening. Members of the board, good evening. My name is Gabriel Mesa. I stand before you tonight to address a critical matter of transparency, due process, integrity of student records within the district. Fundamental to our system of justice is the principles of due process, the right to the accused to face the accuser, to understand the allegations against them, and to review the evidence. Proper oversight requires examination of all evidence, including statements from the accuser, the witnesses, and physical or digital documentation. Building principals assist in a task to conduct investigation in matters of student discipline and document their findings. Parents must partner with the schools to instill discipline towards corrective behavior and official account of the events, what's going on, and ensure that that particular event is not subjective of a narrative, but rather is based on objective facts. Lack of transparency is compounded by serious data security and privacy concerns. Staff members have admitted on the record that teachers use personal unsecured mobile devices to input data, specifically mentioning the Kidport application. The use of personal devices to create and transmit student records is deeply alarming. Why did the board allocate significant public funds to secure IT infrastructure if unsecured personal cell phones remain the operational standard? Moreover, how can a parent verify that facts of a behavioral incident when the staff uses personal devices to coordinate and collaborate? How do I know what is being communicated about my child on a private device is not hearsay? Am I expected to secure a court-ordered warrant to access these communications that should readily exist on the district's secure infrastructure information, which I'm legally entitled to under FERPA? To that end, I formally submitted a request for FERPA seeking information and records. I was aware of the details of the incident when the administrator spoke with me I was assured that I would eventually hear back. I've submitted a formal request on 27 April, yet I have received no substantive action and haven't heard nothing from the school. I sent a follow-up compliance request on 22 June. We are now approaching 60 business day mark since the incident occurred. Failure to comply with a lawful request for student records is deeply disconcerting. I do not have all the facts pertinent to my student's issue. I do not know what has been entered into my son's permanent record. And I do not know, and I have been denied the opportunity to correct that record. Lack of transparency erodes trust with parents. I expect immediate action on this outstanding FERPA request. This matter is not resolved promptly. I'm prepared to retain legal counsel to secure the records, which my family is entitled. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving to adoption of the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And moving to the consent agenda.
I'd like to remove 2.4, please.
0.4, so 2.4 become
3.1.
3.1.
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda with that adjustment?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda with the removal of 2.4, making it 3.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving to item 3.1, items removed from the consent agenda.
Okay, I had a couple of questions about this. Is this a new job position? Ms. Troyer.
To address your question, yes, this is a new job description.
Okay. So here's the rest of my questions for follow-up. And it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to hope there's some grace and then maybe you can guide me to the correct answers. On February 9th, this board was proposed with several options for reducing the budget. Within that were multiple markers on things the board could vote for to do. One of which that day was to close David Brewer, which that failed to even get a motion. We went on item 6 on the February 9th agenda where Jessica had moved and I seconded for the budget reduction to move 5th grade into the elementary school, 6th grade into the intermediate center, and the decision 3 hiring freeze, not a frost, a hiring freeze. If we are in the midst of a hiring freeze, how are we able to have new hires? When
Sure.
did the board vote to amend that to allow new hires?
Sure, I believe the hiring freeze was implemented until the budget savings was collected. So we haven't met that budget savings.
Where was that put anywhere in documentation?
I believe it was in several Friday reviews, and then we
Those
spoke
are
about
Friday
it.
reviews, though. If it's not put in with this, correct me if I'm wrong, it stands until the board votes for it, not having to stand any longer. We didn't put an inclusion in there with budget freeze until we meet the budget reductions.
That was my recollection of the conversation, but we can certainly double check on that.
I would appreciate that because as the motion stands and as it was voted on by the participants, it would continue to go until we chose to vote for it to stop or have it amended.
Sure.
And I think that would be the only way to be transparent and honest because I was supposed to bring in $1 million some in savings.
Right. So to be transparent about this, this is not a net new FTE. This is utilizing a current FTE in the building. It's repurposing it from its current content because that position is no longer needed in that current content
It's still a new
based on
position.
enrollment. So it is the shift of that FTE. So it is not a net new position. But my recollection is that the board voted to do a hiring freeze until the savings were collected and those savings had been met for the coming school year.
The reason why I'm asking for clarification, again, that is not put in here anymore. When I heard the discussion 2 weeks later when we had a study session of where we voted to move this district office and the nutrition into the IC, I was told and heard, well, they never gave us a timeline. So if we've not moved this office and the nutrition into the IC because we didn't give a timeline, that would follow the same course on this freeze. There was no timeline saying, even though the discussions were clear that we were doing these things and that was our intent, it was told it wasn't in the motions, thereby that is not what it was.
I would have to defer to the meeting where that occurred. I believe it was under Dr. Adams' leadership.
It was.
So what I can share is this position is based off of a current FTE that will go unused and is not necessary to meet a budget savings for the coming school year. And we operated under a freeze, frost. At any point, a position could be brought back if the savings had been collected and or if it was considered to be a high need position. I think the example Dr. Adams used was if the, knock on wood, if the entire math department at the high school were to resign, we obviously cannot not post those positions. So to that end, this is not a net new FTE, a +1. It is taking one from one department, shifting it to another, but it is a net new job description.
So why would we need to vote for it like it was a new job rather than just doing a name change like what we do with curriculum?
The job description.
Because
So
it's a
the
different
job descriptions have to be approved. And I believe we had,
Just like curriculum when you change.
yeah, I believe we had a situation with another job that was titled that was under a teaching that was questioned or had concerns about. And so we just wanted to be transparent about what the position was and seek the board's approval for that new job description.
Okay, so I still don't see how we're voting for still new, even though it's net neutral, when we still have it up in the air of actually what was going on the February 9th meeting. I've had a lot of questions about this, a lot.
And additionally, why that position and not a teaching position?
This is a teaching position.
I mean, not the, we were referencing, special ed education. I think that was the high need area that we talked about.
Mhm.
So why this position and not maybe a special ed position that we maybe have a shortage in?
The special education positions were filled at the high school.
Just overall special
The
ed.
shortage isn't the number of positions that we have. The shortage is finding candidates for those positions. So that's when we talk about shortage, it's the inability to get candidates to fill those positions.
Thank you.
So one other quick question.
Sure.
I believe in reading one of the reviews as well. They were saying, I felt like my perception was it was implied it could be a possibility that this position would also be a hiring position in other schools.
Yeah.
No,
Or
that's
just
false.
it's always going to be the focus of the
This
high school. We
That's
wouldn't
what I
need
thought.
one in the middle school. We wouldn't need one in any of the elementary schools.
So anytime we bring a job description to you, it's intended to be general enough that it could be, as an example, a teacher could be at any level. So certainly we brought it with the intent that if it was a position of success moving forward, that it would be an approved job description. But there is not an interest or an appetite to bring this position anywhere else, and it would require them to utilize a current FTE, of which there are none at the middle school.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So there's no unfilled FT positions at the middle school is what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
There's none that the administrator would like to exchange in place of having a position like this, correct?
But this does apply to the high school where there's a PE, if I remember correctly.
Correct. That
Position
is
that's
correct.
not occupied right now.
Correct.
It's not a new position. It's shifting it from one column to another.
Correct.
Is there an increase in salary in that?
No, it's a teacher's position, so it's on the teacher salary schedule.
Any other questions?
No, that's all I have. I'd
No.
like to
Thank
make
you,
a
Board.
motion to approve the Dean of Students job description.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
0. Okay. Item 4, reorganization of the Board of Education, the election of officers. First, we'll go to 4.2, election of President of the Board of Education. I move that Judy Price be elected as President of the Board of Education of USD 453 for the 2026-27 school year.
Second.
All those in favor? 4-3, motion passes. Do we switch out right now? Or you want to go
Have
to
in the
the, okay.
She can do the second.
Election of Vice President of the Board of Education.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Doug Darling as vice president for the 2026-27 year.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'll
Four.
abstain.
What's that, 5-2, 4-2?
He didn't.
Is that,
It counts as a
Sorry.
negative vote since I didn't vote, so it'd be 4-3.
4-3.
okay, all right.
Correct, Beth?
Okay, motion passes. All right, so. we just went to that.
All right.
Oh, it's my seat.
I know, I was making it unstick.
Okay. Would you like your purse?
No, leave it there for right now, unless it's in your way. All right.
Flowers are.
All situated?
I think we are.
All right, we'll move on with item 5, reorganization of the Board of Education, appointments and and designations. So at this time, I'm just going to read through the items and what they are, and we'll take a motion as we get to the end, unless there are any that are taken off. Any discussion? I'll move ahead. 5.2, Board Clerk, the recommendation is Beth Maddox. 5.3, Truancy, recommendation is principals and assistant principals. 5.4, Hearing Officer for Free and Reduced Meals, the recommendation is Beth Maddox. 5.5, Child Nutrition Representative, the recommendation is Beth Maddox. 5.6, Capers Representatives, the recommendation is Beth Maddox and Darlene Klaus. 5.7, the Federal/State Grant Representatives, the recommendation is Rebecca Varvel and Beth Maddox. 5.8, Section 504 Representative, the recommendation is Kathy Rettelberger. 5.9, the Freedom of Information Officer, the recommendation is Jackie Williams. 5.10, Impact Aid Representative, recommendation is Beth Maddox. 5.11, name a depository for district funds, that's a laundry list. Bank Midwest, Commerce Bank, Exchange National Bank, Mutual Savings Association, Country Club Bank, Citizens Federal Savings, Armed Forces Bank, the Citizens National Bank, and State of Kansas Municipal Investment Pool. 5.12, selection of official district newspaper. The recommendation is Leavenworth Times. 5.13, the coordinator of homeless children duties. The recommendation is Kathy Rettelberger. 5.14, coordinator for federal anti-discrimination laws. The recommendation is Amy Jo Troyer. 5.15, the transportation supervisor. The recommendation is Beth Maddox. 5.16, attorney is Gwen Lindorf Law Office and the Kansas Association of School Boards. 5.17, health, dental, and vision insurance broker is IMA Corporation. 5.18, property, liability, errors, and emissions insurance broker. The recommendation is the Kansas Education Risk Management Pool, LLC, or also known as KICS. And at this time, 5.19 is a motion to approve all appointments and designations, unless there's any discussion.
I will second the motion to approve all appointments and designations.
Okay, any discussion? All of those in favor?
Aye.
6-1, thank you. All right, 6-1, organization procedures. So going to the resolution, once again, I'll read the resolution name. I'm not reading the actual resolutions, and the resolutions are with Ms. Maddox at the end of the meeting to be signed. Item 6.2 is Resolution 26/27-001, Generally Accepted Counting Principles. 6.3, Resolution 26/27-002, to rescind previous policy and adopt Board of Education manual for the 2026-2027 year. 6.4, Resolution 26/27-003 and 26/27-004, approval of petty cash funds. 6.5, Resolution 26/27-005, to approve Board of Education meeting dates, times for 2026-2027. 6.6, Resolutions 26/27-006 through 26/27-012, approval to maintain activity funds. 6.7 is Resolution 26/27-013, to establish home rule. 6.8 is approval of early payment claims. 6.9 is authorization of certificates for manual signature. 6.10 is approval to publish notifications. 6.11 is motion to approve all organizational procedures for resolutions 26/27-001 through 26/27-013 and other organizational procedures as presented.
Second.
All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. Are you ready? Are you ready to read?
Yes.
It's for 10 minutes.
All right. Madam President, I move we go into executive session for consultation with our attorney pursuant to the exception for matters which could be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under Kansas Open Meetings Act. We return to open session in this room at 1832.
Okay,
6:32 for
all right, there's the motion.
National Guard time, yes.
There's a motion.
Second.
Are we inviting anyone in?
We will invite Amy Jo Troyer, Beth Maddox, and Jessica Bernard.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you.
No, you were not.
Set that stove off.
I know it's all about 10 seconds.
Eventually I'll have it all right. You're cold in here. Get closer each time.
Madam President, I'd like to make the motion to approve the classified starting pay raises for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0, thank you. right, moving on. Item 9, special education budget update. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move that we accept the staffing report as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me a few minutes. Wanted to talk to everyone about special education and making sure that we have a good grasp of special ed funding. It's a very complex system, and so just to give you an overview just so everybody kind of understands where funding comes from and the different streams of income and where it's going. So obviously with our strategic plan, special education, we're specifically talking finance and operations, but this conversation impacts the whole gamut of our strategic plan. So we'll start off with looking at your federal regulations and where this all starts. So special education funding starts under Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. This guarantees that students with disabilities have access to a free, appropriate public education, also known as FAPE, for students that have disabilities aged 3 through 21. It does require districts to identify, evaluate, and then provide services to students that are eligible for special education services. It also requires that we provide those through an IEP, and it also establishes that federal funding is intended to help offset those offset costs of providing those special education services. So 2 things that fall under that piece of it is that IDEA established those federal funding requirements and fiscal accountability, but it does not guarantee a specific amount to districts. It just set the standard that we will provide federal funding. It also authorized a federal contribution of up to 40% of the national average per pupil expenditure towards excess special education costs. So if you think of if a typical average student costs $10,000 to educate, anything above and beyond that for special education, they've authorized the federal government to reimburse the states, then to the districts at a rate of up to 40%. But what does that really look like? So historically, we have never met that 40% at the federal level. So that's kind of tier 1 when you think of that, when you look at this piece of it. So it's statutorily supposed to be reached at that 40%, but it's never been able to be reached there. School districts are still required to provide those special education services, even though the funding is not provided. So we then have to close that gap in other ways. So even though the federal government has not met their statutory requirements, we are still required to provide the same services. It's really important when you look at this graph here. I really thought that this was beneficial to see kind of where funding has been. So you can see that that solid line is what the annual appropriation has been since 1977 for special education. And that dotted line is your constant dollar. So that is the rate of like real-time money today. And so what's really interesting is you can see for a while, we were really getting our bang for our buck, if you will, with that dotted line and being able to close that gap. But it has really been a constant, our purchasing power, if you will, if you want to use that terminology, our purchasing power since about 2010 has been constant and flat. So there really has not, even though the funding continues to increase, the number of dollars that the federal government continues to increase for us, the purchasing power we have with that money has remained constant since about 2010 due to inflation. And so you have this information as well, so you can kind of have a closer up view. So this is, once again, this starts out in 1981. You can see what percentage of special education funding has come from the federal government. And so you can see there, once again, never have they reached 40% or even come close to that. I think the closest is about 20%. Back in 2003, 2004, 2005, and then it kind of tapered back off again. So once again, federal government has never gotten close to reimbursing at that full 40%. So then therefore, then the states have to pick up those tabs. And then once again, then the local districts have to pick that up as well. So then we'll move into the Kansas regulations and kind of where that falls. So to give you a little background about special education in Kansas. So in 1974, a year before public law came in for special education at the federal level, Kansas created what we call SECA. And so that dedicated that we're going to give funding and we're going to give special education aid to Kansas, to students with disabilities. In the mid 80s, we came close and sometimes almost exceeding that 100% excess costs. And then it kind of decreased. So between 1990 and 1999, we had some fluctuations. So between 77 and 95% of our excess costs were being reimbursed. In 2005, it became codified into statute that 92% of excess costs would be reimbursed to the school districts. Once again, that has not happened since then, since 2010. So 2005, we put it in law. 2009, the legislature makes a push that they're going to meet that. 2010, they achieved that, and that was the last year that we received 92% reimbursement. Since then, it has fluctuated between 69 and 82%. This year, I believe it was about 67%, and they're projecting 65% this upcoming school year. So once again, not nearly where that is. How does that impact us as a school district? Once again, when the federal government doesn't give the state the money, the state then doesn't giving us the money, those are all impacting things that then we have to close that gap using the general fund.
And how much did it take out of the general fund this year, last year?
A little over $3 million. I have that number up here in a second, so you can see that. So how does funding work in Kansas? So different states do funding different ways. Some use an FTE model or a staff member model. That's what we utilize. Some states do it by services. Some states do it by disability categories. Some have combinations thereof. But Kansas reimburses based on an FTE model. So we get reimbursement for each position we hire for. That's a certified position, and then there's a classified reimbursement. So this is our estimated number that we received for this upcoming school year. So for every certified staff member we hire, we get $28,250 of reimbursement. And then for classified, so that'd be your paraprofessionals, your RBTs, SLPAs, etc. Those are funded at 40% of your certified rate. So that's about $11,300. Subs also fall into this. So like depending on whether they're an emergency sub, a fully licensed sub, those reimbursement rates are different as well. And so we know state law requires that 92% of our funding is covered. We know that that's not happening. You hear the term excess costs. So once again, just like we talked about on the federal level, if in Kansas, let's say an average student gets $10,000 of funding, and let's say it takes us $20,000 total to provide services to this child, that's a $10,000 difference. So if the state of Kansas was fully funding that 92%, we would get $9,200 back for every $10,000 that we spent. So when they're funding at, let's say, 65%, that means we're getting that $6,500 versus $9,200. So when we hear excess costs, that's what that number is referring to. And so there's 4 big main components, if you will, of state aid that we receive to make up our special education budget. So that is Medicaid replacement state aid, catastrophic state aid, transportation aid for special education, and then that special education teacher aid. And we'll break that down here so you can kind of see that. This is just a quick little graph so you can kind of see the percentages, if you will, since 2020 of where we've actually been with state funding, with that blue line representing where we should be. So once again, not coming close to closing that gap. So the special education budget for the state of Kansas is around $611 million. That's the total allocation. So of that, this is how they kind of divvy out the monies, and this is in a priority order. So what the state does is they have their pocket of money, $611 million. So the first thing that comes out of that pocket is what we call catastrophic aid. And so those are things to cover students with significant needs, significant placements. It's those really expensive services. Students that need a one-on-one nurse, students that need private placements, students that need to be placed in other districts, those types of things. What we look at is when you kind of think about that piece of it, if you look at what that reimbursement is, so let's use for simple math, $28,000, take that times 2, you get that number. That's your base number. Then we take out anything for like transportation, et cetera, for the student. Anything else above that, the state will reimburse that dollar amount at 75%. So let's say that a student had a $250,000 private placement. We pull out all the excess dollars. Let's say that takes it down to $100,000. The state would then reimburse at 75% of that.
And
so
the district has had those
we have
types
yes
in the past.
Yes, we have had those types of placements in the past.
So question, I know that we have the School of the Deaf and the Blind. It's our have we had students placed in other districts for services?
We've done School for the Deaf and School for the Blind. We have, when we were a co-op, we shared.
Co-op,
We
okay.
got, when we shared, we had students that went to Lansing for the New Beginnings, which is
Okay.
our Third Avenue equivalent.
Okay.
But we do not currently have any students placed in other districts.
Right.
We have also, what Mr. Darling's referring to is sometimes we have to contract with private companies and agencies to provide those services. And those are going to be your more expensive for students that we just cannot meet their needs. Those are those more expensive placements that Mr. Darling's referring to. We do not currently have any students in that type of a placement. So that type of money gets pulled out first. So this last year, $1.3 million across Kansas got pulled out to reimburse districts for that. So then the next piece of that money is your Medicaid replacement state aid. So we, because we provide medical-based services, so our speech, our OT, our psychologist for testing, et cetera, because those are medical in nature, we can get Medicaid reimbursement for those. So we file for those. And then this Medicaid replacement state aid is there to close the gap, if you will, for any additional monies that we might lose with Medicaid. And so it's a 2-week window during the month of March that we try our best to make sure all the kids get their services in, that they get all their claims made, because that type of money is another extra about $600 per student that we can get claimed for additional funding. So that equaled about $9 million from Kansas budget. So that came out next. Then you look at your transportation. So state of Kansas reimburses districts at 80% for special education transportation. So if a student, if it costs a student $1,000 worth of transportation during the year, they're going to reimburse $800 of that. So think of it in those terms. And so that's the next pot that they make sure that the districts are reimbursed for. And so last year that was about $90 million. That number is one that the state is continuing to watch, because those numbers, because of gas prices and transportation needs, et cetera, are continuing to increase. So that number is something that is continuing to go up. So 90 million comes out of the pot. Now you have whatever is left over that's going to be divvied out to the district. That's why I said that that fiscal year 27, our allocation, if you will, per staff member is estimated, because we don't know, because it's all reliant on how much of these other dollars get claimed. If that 90 million, let's say next year doubles to 180 million, we're going to get significantly less dollars per staff member we have hired. If it goes down to 20 million, then we're going to get significantly, possibly more dollars. So now we're at the last piece, which is that special teacher reimbursement. And so that is the remaining aid that then gets divvied up amongst districts. This also gets impacted because we are at the mercy, if you will, of all the other districts as well. So for example, they base that number off of the current number of special ed teacher allocations and paraprofessional allocations, et cetera. As we see the intensity of needs for students increase, the intensity that the needs for additional paraprofessionals, the addition of need for more special ed teachers, every time a district adds another paraprofessional, that decreases the amount of money everybody else gets. So we're kind of at the mercy. If a district decided that they needed 10 to 20 additional paras and no other districts decided they didn't need those allocations, then those dollars go down. We also have this thing called maintenance of effort. I'm sure you guys have heard of that as well within special education. And so IDEA is very specific on this, that whatever monies we spend the current year, we cannot spend less than that the following year. So when we talk about the budget as a whole, and we're looking at staff reductions, we're looking at where can we save the monies, that's why it becomes very, we have to be very tedious and very hands-on when it comes to special education, because we can't really reduce the budget per se. There are a few exceptions in special education that we can tap into if we qualify. So one of those are things like retirements of a staff member. So let's say I have a staff member that retires and is making $100,000 a year, and I hire somebody in at $60,000. I can lower my maintenance effort by $40,000 because I have a staff member replacing that staff member. Now, if I were to say that FTE just goes away, that does not count as that is not a savings in my maintenance of effort. Another one is a reduction in the number of students with disabilities. So let's say we had 30 to 40 students that moved out of this district and did not come back. That might be a potential window to decrease maintenance of effort. Or let's say that a few students moved out. Let's say we decrease the number of students we qualified. Once again, as long as I'm spending the same amount or more per pupil, then that might be a way that we could reduce maintenance of effort. That takes a lot of students to be able to actually meet that criteria. And then another one is termination of long-term services. So if we have a student that is in a different placement and that student graduates, that's something that we can write off in maintenance of effort. Our contracting services, so we'll talk about this in a second, but as you know, contracting services are very expensive. If we fill those with our own employees, that cost difference is something we can write off of maintenance of effort. But as far as just saying, you know, we're going to slash 15 special ed staff, that's not how we can claim that, because what happens then is we have to pay back those dollars anyway. So we actually get double dinged, if you will. So that's something we want to make sure we watch. We have to meet that maintenance of effort number. So what's our current status? What challenges are we seeing? So we all know we're being underfunded. $1.2 billion are being spent on special ed services across the state of Kansas. And there's an estimated $173 million shortfall across Kansas. We're not seeing the light. We had some hope when they a couple years ago put in an extra step, about $72 million. That was supposed to be over the next 4 years. We were supposed to get that additional dollars, and it was going to help close that gap. Those appropriations did not continue to happen beyond that year. So during legislative session 2025, it was proposed an additional $72 million be put into the state pot. The final action was a vote for $10 million additional monies. For legislative session 26, it was proposed $87.6 million, once again, to help close that gap and make up for the previous year. That did not happen, and they ended up on $6 million. So as you can see, the monies are not coming in at the sheer rate of additional costs that we're having to spend for contracted services, mental health, transportation costs continue to go up, contracted costs go up, et cetera. And so what is our implication here? So as those numbers continue to rise and the funding continues to stay stagnant or decrease, our local funds have to take up the slack to make that difference. So this was our past year, the 25-26 school year. This was our budget. So you can see that we brought in about $5.37 million of that state education, state aid, or special education state aid. The federal government provided about $915,000. Our Medicaid and other grants was $285,000. And so the general budget and the LOB had to pick up that $3.13 million. And so what does that mean? So that means that those dollars that would have been spent for all students, that also impacts special education too, because special education students are all students. They're our students first. They're just students that need services. That $3.1 million could not be used for all students. It just had to be used for special education. And so that is also, as you can imagine, impacting these budget conversations that we're having. And so currently, our identification rate at the end of the school year was 22.6% identified. For context, the state of Kansas averages about 17%. So we are above the average in Kansas. We currently have about 687 students with disabilities, 0 high-cost placements. We do have 5 out-of-district placements, but that's school for the deaf, school for the blind. And then our transportation costs are all internal and external routes. So we've picked up, instead of contracting all of our services out for external routes to school for the deaf, school for the blind, we've done those routes ourselves now. So we've taken those on. So how will we manage to try to maintain costs without escalating the special ed budget? We know that 15% of our special ed budget can be used on the proactive side to help support all students, not just students with special needs. So things like RBTs, BCBAs that support all students, our professional development that we offer, offering MTSS and the SIP process and helping support students before they're identified. We can use some of our special ed monies for that. Really focusing on that early intervention. So things like Count Your Kid In, Tiny K transitions, et cetera. The more early intervention we can get students in, get them the services they need, and then help support them on their transition back to general education. We've increased our ability to do transportation management. So like I said, we do all of our external routes now through special education. And then we also have taken on all of our internal routes where we used to contract out services to take kids from Leavenworth High School to 3rd Avenue or those types of things. We run all those routes in-house as well. We monitor those high cost cases. So when we have students that have those more significant needs, we become highly involved. We throw all of our resources at that to try to help support that student to be successful. We have been creative with our staffing and recruiting. We've increased, we had a huge sign-on bonus for those really high cost, hard to find positions. That's been very successful. We'll talk about that in a second. And then also ensuring that the services that we do provide produce those measurable educational benefits. Special education was never meant to be something that you're in forever. Some students we know need that level of support. Some students will qualify in kindergarten and they'll need that support until they are 21. And that's okay if that's what they need. But really the goal of special education should be get students in, get them the skills they need, close that gap, and then graduate them out of special education services. And so one of our first considerations is increasing contractor costs. This is our average contractor cost annually compared to what we actually get for reimbursement. This was this last year. This is not this current upcoming school year. And so one of the benefits we had of having that large sign-on bonus, if you guys remember, we did $10,000 sign-on bonuses for SLPs, BCBAs, those really expensive positions, is we've been able to decrease the number of staff we've had that we're contracting from 11 staff members to 5. So it's about 55% decrease. So it's a combination of those sign-on bonuses alongside our team working really hard to support those staff members, to help them feel part of our team and them wanting to join and or stay and really help that retention rate. 3 of our former contractors have accepted positions with us this upcoming school year because they've been so impressed with how we operate things, as well as that sign-on bonus absolutely helped with that as well. The next thing is making sure we consider the intensity of the needs that we are seeing. We are seeing more complex behaviors, more complex cases that require high levels of support, sometimes 3, 4, 5 staff members having to be involved in situations to help support students to be successful. And we're also seeing an increase in students that have limited exposure to language, to early literacy, those foundational skills, the students that are coming to us that aren't potty trained, students that are coming to us that don't know their ABCs and aren't able to count and those types of things. And sometimes kids that come to us in kindergarten that don't know their first name. And so that's always a challenge to try to figure out, like, who's the student, where do they belong, those kinds of things. So we're seeing that, and that's absolutely impacting some of what we have going on in special ed. The next thing is a look at our special education trends. And so it's important to really focus in on our numbers here. So this was from 2018 to present. This is Leavenworth School District. And so the blue, that top line, is our overall enrollment in our district. So as you all know, that number is declining. So you can see that decline there. The green is our percentage of special education identification. So as we lose students and students are not special education students, that identification rate is going to go up. And then we continue to qualify students as well. And then that very bottom is the special education numbers, the number of students identified with IEPs. And so I really want to point out here is that while we're seeing that steep decline in our regular ed enrollment, when you look at special education, we're not losing a lot of students. So once again, as we talk about students decline enrollment, can we, let's start looking at decreasing special ed services. We're not seeing those students leave Leavenworth. And this is all based on our September 20 count. So just for context there, September 20th, we had 599 students with disabilities. By the end of the year, like I said earlier, we had 687. And that did not include all the kids that came and gone in between all of that as well. So we have that highly transient population that impacts as well. And then the last thing is just, as some of you guys maybe are following, we do have the Kansas Education Funding Task Force. They've been actively meeting. I believe they have a couple more meetings, and then they're supposed to have the new funding formula for the upcoming school year. In addition to that, they have had conversations about how do they fund special ed? Do we continue with this FTE model? Do we move to a different type of model? What does that look like? So there's a lot of changes that I'm certain are coming ahead. And they'll start coming pretty quickly. So it's really important that we kind of stay tuned to those to see how that's going to look. And so what can we do here? So important to stay informed. What's happening at the legislature, how's this going to impact our school district? It's important if you can get to Topeka and advocate, email your senators, your representatives, let them know your thoughts, your feelings, how it's impacting our district. It's important that they know those things because they only know what they hear. So it's really important they hear our stories and hear what you know and hear what you guys see here in our district. And then the other thing is advocating for that early intervention and family education. The more we can prevent students from being identified, the more we can get that early intervention, get them in, get them services, and then get them out, the better off all students will be for our district. Any questions?
I just have a comment. The way that you explained the maintenance of effort really made sense for me this time. Like I've heard it and I'm like, great, but your breakdown today really
Thanks.
helped. Thank you.
I do have a few questions, and thank you so much. That was very important to present. And again, growing up here, I've always heard that Leavenworth County had really great support services and special needs. So I appreciate all our teachers that work in special needs programs. Curious, and you mentioned it, and I may have missed it, but the medical insurance part of it,
Mhm.
does that actually offset what the state provides, or it's
It's additional funding.
additional funding?
Yep.
Okay,
So
that's
any
what I
student
thought you
that,
said.
yep, any student that qualifies for Medicaid services, their parents would provide consent, and then we get a prescription filled out, and then our providers, our SLPs, OTs, et cetera, file Medicaid, bill Medicaid for those services. So
I
it's
see.
not a lot of dollars, but it is a few dollars that helps offset the cost of special ed.
I see. And thank you for
Yeah.
that. And you did mention a few dollar amounts. I think you threw out 28,000. Is that a realistic number for a special needs student, special education?
Are you talking the reimbursement for a staff member?
Yes.
That is the lowest we've had since probably 2016 for
Okay.
reimbursement. So that reimbursement model is starting to decline. It was just recently we were over 30,000. So
Perfect. And who monitors? Is someone in the district monitor the maintenance of Epford?
yep. So Ms. Maddox and then myself, we monitor that to make sure we're on target. And then as we close the year, if we're starting to worry that we're not going to meet that, all districts kind of do the similar process where they're monitoring. If they're not going to meet that, that's where then we start looking at things like, is there something we're really needing in the district? Is it a piece of assistive technology? Is it maybe we need to do a refresh on iPads or those types of things? That's typically what districts do is as they get close to the end of the year, if they're getting close to we're not going to meet it, they'll go ahead and spend some things on those wish list items because it's more expensive not to meet maintenance of effort than it is to meet it.
Gotcha. Thank
That's
you.
kind of a strange incentive.
It is. It is.
It does sound interesting.
It is.
And I had one other.
Because you spend and then you can never stop.
Right.
You can-
Yes. Yes.
You can, even if your situation somewhat changes, I mean, aside from those, the
Exceptions.
3 exceptions
Yep.
that you pointed out, you're basically you're full speed ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why we try to always get as close as we can to that target. But yeah, it's really hard, especially when we're going through budget cuts and things like that. To sometimes it looks like maybe we're not being part of the team per se, if you will, because it's like, well, they're not cutting anything. It's like, but we can't. We can
Right.
change how we spend things within the pockets. But as far as saying, we're going to cut 500,000 out of special ed, that's not something we can do.
And regarding the busing, if a special needs student, they have the specific buses that pick up special needs children. If they ride the regular bus, I don't know how the terminology is, the gen ed bus, do you still get the dollars?
No, so the 80% is for special education transportation. So whether that's the special education busing service or our internal routes where one of our van drivers picks a student up, it would be something aside from your gen ed busing.
Okay, so if they're a special needs student and they ride the gen ed bus, there's no additional.
Correct.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, you hit a point talking about, kind of having the kids ready maybe for kindergarten. How, they do, I think you said count me in. How does that work? Or how do we get the word out to parents about
Yeah.
that program?
Great question. So we send postcards and flyers to every doctor, daycare, et cetera, so that they have access to that, the guidance center, et cetera. So as they're seeing littles and they're saying, hey, like this kiddo might have some needs, then they can hand those postcards out. We typically do that around early August. We send out those new updated postcards. We've ordered them. We're waiting for the new ones to get in. We also posted on our district website. We posted on our Facebook pages, et cetera. This year, we're running a pop-up Count Your Kid event tomorrow that coincides with our enrollment event. And so parents just sign their students up. There's a little QR code. They can call the board office. They can just show up. That's fine too. We've had those as well. And then our special education team runs them through a screening process to look at fine motor, gross motor, communication, academic readiness, et cetera. And so then we look at their scores compared to what we would expect a student of that age as early as 3. And if they are below the cutoff, then that's when we get parents we talk to them about special education evaluation and special education services if they qualify.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question.
The special ed funding formula you said is maybe in flux, that there's going to be some changes coming. Do you foresee, I mean, just what you hear being talked about, is that going to be a good thing for our district, or maybe not, or we just don't know?
We don't really know. I will say, so we did have there was a special education specific funding task force that kind of got set aside as they brought in the whole funding task force in general. When it was the special ed funding task force, they had looked at, I believe they ran models for 8 to 12 different ways to do funding. And of all those ways, only one way benefited our district. The rest of them, we either stayed pretty much stagnant or we lost dollars. And when I say lost dollars, it was anywhere from 100,000 all the way up to 5 million on one of them. So it makes me really nervous. We've not gotten any. I've tuned into the funding task force meetings just to kind of try to stay up to breast with what they're saying. We don't have any inkling on what this formula is going to look like. They've talked about what their states are doing. They've talked about our outcomes. They've talked about what they want to see, but like, there's no, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking. I've not been privy to what those might look like.
Now, the 92%, that's excess special ed costs for the whole state, right? And am I understanding that right? And then you start chipping away at that. And so it's not 92% of our.
So what it should look like in the grand scheme of things with their, long formula that's really hard to understand, but what it should look like is, once again, if in Leavenworth, let's say it's $10,000 to educate a general education student, and Johnny costs $20,000 of additional funds. Let's say it cost me $20,000 to educate Johnny for special ed on top of the 10, that 92% should represent 92% of that $20,000. And that does not come in a check of like, this is Johnny's money. That comes in a form of reimbursement through all of those different methods that we talked about. And so that's why part of this is so complicated, because it's not a direct ratio of this student costs X, so we're going to reimburse this amount for that student. That's not how they fund it. They fund it through those FTE pieces.
Which is one of the reasons why 4 Johnson County school districts are suing
Yes.
for $100 million at their
Yes.
excess costs that they've had.
Yes.
Okay, one more question on our district specifically. I mean, one of the things that confuses the heck out of me about all the school finance stuff is getting like an accurate picture, because, your reserves are like really huge, but those reserves are going for how many months before you get another payment? And what kind of flex, like the in and out of the reimbursement, do we have to float out of general and pay back? I mean, because I know there's a lot of movement there, and I'm not saying I understand it very well now, but I sure didn't understand that before getting on the board, that there's a timing thing there. So how are we managing that, I guess?
So we are currently starting, new fiscal year, new school year, and our first aid payment for special education will not receive that till October. So we are, using all resources, general fund, supplemental general fund, capital outlay, whatever it is, to make sure we are paying for the special education services until we get our first payment. And then I feel like it's October, December, March, and then June. So.
Wow. I mean, I think that's something that that a lot of people don't understand, is that movement, that when your reimbursement comes is not necessarily when you're making your payments.
That's true.
So, okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else?
I have a just for fun question between you and Ms. Maddox. So if we were fully funded for SPED, in the grand scheme of things, perfect world, we were fully funded for SPED, what would be the decrement to our mill levy if we had all of our funding for SPED? Doesn't have to be done tonight. I'm saying, just curious.
And you want to know federal and state?
Yes. What would that look like if we were fully funded for SPED?
Definitely close the budget gap.
I'm just saying. But what would that mill levy look like?
Yeah, because your local money is going to.
I remember
offset to- or to
every
pay for that. Okay.
something that Kevin used to say was a mill was about $100,000. So that would be,
We'll get it for you. That's a good question.
I'm just very curious.
Yeah. Great question. Anything else? All right. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Varvel.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 10, facilities and operations update. Mr. Varvel.
Good evening. I'm going to talk about our capital outlay plans for the 26-27 school year. I know I've presented on capital outlay a few times for you already, so hopefully this feels like a continuation of that information, not totally new. We'll start with a little bit of recap for where we finished the year on our projects, what items were deferred, and then what our plans are for the next year, as well as what future considerations we have for capital outlay. So definitely the primary area of our strategic plan that this impacts is finance and operations. So a quick recap just for everybody's memory. Capital versus general. Capital fund is used for replacement of systems or equipment, purchase of new equipment, construction, improvement to the sites, furniture. It can be used for salaries, specific salaries like staff on the maintenance team, anybody who upkeeps and maintains the buildings. General fund is used for things like repairs and upkeep, uniforms, recurring services expenses, and salaries for things like administrative staff, grounds, and custodial. So for our large capital projects, we are estimating 2.1 million again this year, the same as last year. It is a living document. We prioritize projects, and as you saw several times last year, we had to kind of call audibles and make adjustments as need, whether items become more urgent or whether we take strategic decisions in the district and we just have to change, go a different direction. So a lot of the considerations that we're going to be having this year and in the next several years are things like rooftop unit replacements, boilers, roofing, concrete and asphalt repairs, uninterrupted power supply replacements, security system updates and replacements, and LHS track restoration for this year. So it'll be a lot of what keeps the lights on kind of thing. It'll be largely operations focused. So for our projects last year, this is kind of where we ended out the year. We completed the 8 RTU replacements at Anthony. We completed the David Brewer roofing. We did go ahead and defer the UPS replacements, and it really wasn't a money consideration. It was kind of a timing and logistics with all the other projects we had going on and long lead times for things like that. So we will look at that again this year. The culinary remodel is in progress. Hopefully you got to see some of the updated pictures. That's one I'm pretty excited about because it's really going to benefit that program. That should complete this summer, and I'm really looking forward to the final outcome there. We did completely remove the intermediate parking lot. It's no longer needed. It won't be on the deferred list. It's removed along with a few other items that as things change, we just remove them from the list. The Warren tuck pointing was completed very early last year. The middle school roofing is in progress. They're going to be resuming that this next week. They started on that, had to take a pause, and they're back at it. So that should be done in, they say, about 15 days or so after they resume. And then we did do kind of a pivot and went for camera upgrades at the 3 elementaries. So those were the final projects we completed that were large projects. It was 1.7 million. We did have a number of other capital expenditures that were not large projects. A lot of HVAC repairs this year with that service agreement. It was great, but it also allowed us to see a lot of repairs that needed to be done. So things like that, some custodial equipment, some grounds equipment, things like that. So we did have other expenditures, but this is the large capital projects that we had. So here's our deferred list. I won't read through all of them. We'll say we removed a few items that are no longer necessary. And the total deferred did go down a little bit from last year's total deferred, but it's still 1.7 million on our list. So some of the future considerations are the same as they were last year. We've got a little bit of updated numbers, but some of the big ones are HVAC and mechanical. So we still have, last year I said we had over 70 units that needed replaced. We still have over 60. In the last 2 years, we've replaced about 14 rooftop units, 8 this year, 6 the year before, and I think we need to stay on track to keep replacing those every year. The life expectancy of most units is 17 to 20 years. There are some that are longer, boilers 30, and there's some other units that go 30, but that's for the majority of them, 17 to 18 years. Failures are starting after about 15 years we're seeing. We're at 16 for a large majority of these, and we did have a lot of repairs that need to be done this year. So I think that if we stay on track, we need to try to replace most of these units in 5 to 8 years, because the continuing repairs is just going to increase as those age. So the total cost estimate to replace all units is definitely greater than $5 million. Along that same line, we've got a lot of interior wall AC units. So they're not rooftop units, they're inside the classrooms. You've probably seen them along the walls. We've got a lot of them at Anthony Elementary and David Brewer Elementary. However those spaces are used, whether they have students or staff, they will need to be replaced, retrofitted at some point in the next 5+ years. So the total estimated cost to replace those, we believe, is over $1 million. I definitely this year want to explore what our options are there, whether it is a very similar replacement like that, or whether it's rooftop units or something else. I think we need to look at what those replacements are going to look like. The total estimated cost for all HVAC mechanical units over the next 5 to 8 years is greater than $6 million. So I did take that number down a little bit because we replaced 14 of them. So another large capital project that we do every year is roof replacements and restorations. So based on our annual survey from June 2025, I'm hoping to have another one come out here soon and update our 10-year planning tool. The roof replacements and restorations need to be done every year so we don't fall behind. And the district has done a very good job of that over the years. So we're staying on top of that. The total estimated cost for roof replacements and restorations over 10 years is greater than $7 million. So I don't want to lose sight of some of the other items that have been discussed in the past. Things like fencing around playgrounds themselves, JROTC, CTE buildings, security upgrades and cameras in classrooms, and then relocation of district support services if we end up going that direction. And really anything that we look at, like the culinary remodel. If we lose sight of those things, our students lose opportunities. So we have to always continue to do a few of those as well. I know I'll probably be very heavy on the operational ones for a while, but we still have to do these others too. So our current large capital project plan is about 2.1 million. Definitely the high school track resurfacing one, which we'll talk about in a little bit, estimated around 200,000. High school roofing, about 725,000. The high school uninterrupted power supply, we estimate around 60,000. We're looking at boiler replacements for probably Earl Lawson and Richard Warren. They've got the two oldest ones that look like they need replaced. I think we need to do 6 to 8 RTUs again this year, somewhere in the district. Concrete repair and replacement. We've put that off for 2 or 3 years now. I think we need to get out there and do it. We've got some sections that need it pretty badly. So we're estimating 125,000. Water heater replacements at Henry and Anthony, each would be around 60,000. The interior AC wall units for David Brewer and Anthony, I think we need to take a look at those this year. And then storm drainage system repairs. David Brewer and the high school have a couple spots that will need repaired. I don't have exact estimates on that yet. We're working with an engineering company to get surveys done. We should have more information very soon. The current total estimate for this year is about 2.1 million. If we do salaries again like we did last year as part of capital, that would be about 500,000. Those would be from the maintenance specific team. So the total would be 2.6 million. The cost of what we have right now as deferred projects is 1.7 million. We still anticipate the need to increase capital outlay maybe to 2.8 to 4 over the next several years at some point to keep up with the increasing costs and not fall behind on deferred. We don't want to lose track of some of those other projects. Pioneer Stadium, the turf is going to need to be replaced in the very near future, probably the scoreboard as well. Activity support for things like JROTC, CTE, work experience, band, theater, etc. Like I said, we always prioritize the items, adjust them based on the need, and long deferral cycles will make it very hard for us to keep up with that. So keep that in mind, especially as you make your decisions over the next month or so on what our mill rates will be. Also, the strategic plans that you make and have been making, those are definitely going to impact the plans that we put forward. If things are no longer needed, like the parking lot, we'll remove them. If we need to add something because of a decision we've made, we'll add that to our list and bring that to you as our recommendation. What questions do you have for me?
My question on the regarding the salaries, and you said it's specifically related to the maintenance
The
team.
maintenance team, yeah, specifically.
What positions are those?
Yeah, so we have an electrician, we have a painter, we have several general maintenance. In the past, we've had master mechanical, master plumbers. We don't currently, but it would be anybody in the maintenance specific positions, not our grounds team or our custodian team. And it can't cover administrative salaries like mine or facility coordinator or our administrative assistant.
Thank you. I think you shared that with us before, but just for those watching, thank you.
Yeah. My understanding is they must be working on maintaining the facilities. So.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Robles, we move on to the tennis courts at the high school.
Thank you.
For the tennis court consideration, it would be our recommendation that the board accept or approve the contract that was submitted to us by the original contractor to try to remediate and restore the tennis court surface that has become deteriorated over the last several years due to water coming up through the concrete. I believe they refer to it as hyperstatic pressure. It is $0 to repair the north 3 courts. They have the worst damage, but there is deterioration on the south 3 courts. The contractors agreed to do the south 3 courts at cost to them, and that would cost the district $50,000 if we were to approve that. It would be my recommendation to accept both because I believe that it is the best option we have to protect the district's investment and get the most life out of the court itself. It includes things like removing the surface, prepping the concrete, putting fill to fill the bird bathing or puddles that you see. putting down the critical step of putting down a moisture membrane over the concrete to keep moisture from coming up through it and damaging the surface, the playing surface itself. Then they would also do a new surface and restripe the courts. It doesn't include any removal or replacement of the concrete itself, but we believe it would get the most life out of the concrete itself. And ideally, we could get, on average, I've read that 7 to 8 years out of tennis courts is pretty normal, but it could also be as much as maybe 10 years or so. The condition of the concrete itself, it's not shifting, it's not moving, there's no large gaps or cracks. We think that would get the most life out of the concrete itself. And the other consideration is that if we have to continue to patch and repair the surface, it's quite expensive.
All right, any questions or discussion?
Did they share any additional reasoning for it, or is it just water coming up from the
it's essentially, it's not like flowing water. It is when it heats up or cools down, there is moisture coming up through the porous surface of the concrete itself.
Gotcha.
If I have to give my opinion, I would say this would be a good example of why it can sometimes be important for projects to spend a little more on architectural and engineering services beforehand. It previously was an asphalt court. It's now a concrete court. I would highly recommend doing that in the future.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept the tennis court project?
I make a motion to do the tennis court project for $50,000. That's the south 3, but they're going to do the north 3 for free.
Second.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? All right, all of those in favor?
Aye.
7-0, thank you. All right, Mr. Rowell, moving on. Item 10.3, the high school track and field services project.
Okay, for this particular proposal here, we would recommend giving us approval to enter into a master service agreement with DSC Services for construction project management services for the track. I always keep saying resurfacing, but it's restoration. Essentially, it's an overspray coating to restore that red coat that you see on top that they actually walk and run on. And it would be for the track, the D-ring, the jump pits, all of the surfaces all at once. The track surface is about 10 years old now, and it's held up really well, but it definitely has a lot of wear. The wear is in the common places you would expect it, the inside lanes where they start relays, things like that. The black underlayer, the structural layer, is pretty clearly visible through it at this point. And if we continue on that track, what's going to happen is we're going to wear into that structural support layer and damage it to the point that we can't do this overspray recoat. And we would have to have it scraped off and the whole track redone. I've heard that it's probably about 3 times as expensive. This particular service agreement does still have to be reviewed by legal. So pending their final say on it, they are part of the Greenbush Cooperative offering the project management services. What they would do is pre-construction services. They would help us put it out to bid. And then the idea being in August, we would bring you the bids for approval so that we could complete this project this fall after sports are done. It's a tight timeline, but we think that we need to do it before the next track season. Otherwise, we're likely to wear into that underlayer, and it's definitely gotten its life out of it. So that would be our recommendation, is to allow us to enter into this service agreement with them so that we could move this project forward on a tight timeline.
Any questions?
No.
Do
So
you
we're
need
not approving that now until you have the proposal or
So
until it goes
the-
through legal, or am I understanding that?
Yes. So I think essentially what we're asking is to approve the service agreement contingent on legal's final draft. There's no cost associated with the agreement itself. In the budget information that we shared with you, essentially they receive 10% and an 8% for their services of whatever the final bid that we accept is. We don't pay them anything up front.
So due to the timeline of when we have board meetings and the time in which this has to be constructed, because there are some temperature considerations, obviously usage considerations, legal will review and provide any edits to the company that the district feels needs to be changed. And so Mr. Barville's asking for consideration to approve that process with legal making any edits necessary.
Okay, let me ask a question if I could. The alternative number one there, remove and recaulk concrete expansion joints, that falls within your authority to approve that, correct, Dr. Littleberger?
Are you?
At 20K?
Yes,
That
yes.
falls within yours, so we
Yes.
need to have the motion for approving a contract with DCS pending legal review,
Yes.
or do I
Just
need
field
to say the
services.
exact number, or 200K be sufficient?
That, the
So-
cost of the track, we don't know.
We
That's
don't- we don't
different.
know
Okay.
until
So
So it's just
it's-
going into the services.
It's essentially
Okay.
just their services to
And
do the
project management.
pre-construction.
The project
work,
management
Project
for-
manage and to put it out, solicit bids. And then
Okay.
you would have the opportunity to approve bids next month.
So basically, you just want a motion for DCS to be in charge of doing the bids.
Project
And
management.
and the project management.
And
combined.
project
Yeah, they would manage it through completion.
And do you still have oversight or someone on our
Yes.
team?
Yes. Kind of very similar to some of our other projects, like working with Universal Construction. We would meet with them frequently, and they would give us updates on it.
And will it impact, I know we have band and football, ROTC out there.
So that is the difficult part, is working it into that schedule. We've already gotten the schedules for soccer and football. My understanding is there's temperature considerations. It's got to be 50 degrees and rising. It can't be going lower at that time. And it also can't be over 12 miles an hour wind when they spray. So they say, I was impressed with 12 actually, because they're spraying it. So it does give us a pretty tight window. We need about 14 days to be able to do that. They say that on average in this area, they can usually go till about November 15th. And then they kind of shut it down and then start again when it
When the
warms
weather
up in spring.
permits. Okay.
So
Okay. I will make a motion to approve construction management services for the restoration of the track at Leavenworth High School Stadium with DCS for $200,000 pending legal review.
I'll second.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
I thought we weren't associating a dollar amount, or we're not associating it.
No dollar amount with the motion.
Okay. I'll
Dollar amount will
I'll
come with the
revolve
project.
that
So they just amend it with no dollar amount, please.
amended with no dollar amount
All right,
pending legal review.
anything
Okay,
else?
now I'll second.
Okay, so Darlene over me. All of those in favor? 7-0, thank you. All right, thanks, Mr. Barnwell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 11, review of the revenue neutral tax rate. Hello, Ms. Maddox.
Hello.
So every year, the district is required to notify the county clerk of the estimated tax rate for 26-27 budget, and that due date is July 20th. So before you is our proposal for the tax rate and the intent to exceed the revenue neutral tax rate. This information tonight shows total taxes in 25-26 budget for both all the funds was $15,341,656. The estimated taxes for all funds in the 26-27 budget would be $17,501,418. This is approximately $2,160,000 increase in estimated tax revenue and a 3.37 mill levy rate increase for this proposal. This optimizes resources for the 26-27 budget and sets the ceiling for the mill levy. So this again is not a action item tonight. It is not a final approval. It is just providing notice to the county clerk so they can send their notices out about the mill rate. And we would do a more, show more options as far as being lower, but we want to give the county the ceiling amount and all that at the budget review that we would do at the August board meeting before the budget is published.
And this is not going into the paper, it's just to the county clerk.
Just to the county clerk, and then the notices from the county clerk would reflect this information.
Okay.
And if this is the ceiling, when we come back to discuss this, you're going to have other options for?
Yes. As we, just a refresher, the general fund, we cannot adjust the mill rate for the general fund. That's set by state statute. The supplemental general fund is a percentage, 33% of our general fund, and is also used mostly for operating dollars across the district, which has been part of our budget reduction calculations. And then capital outlay is the max can be 8 mills, and last year it was at 5.578. So that's historically where the mill rate has been lowered. And bond and interest is the debt service on our bond and interest bonds, outstanding bonds. And yes, we did refinance some this current year, but we still have to maintain the debt service schedule. Also to note, state aid is decreasing in all our areas. So especially in the bond and interest, unfortunately, if state aid is decreasing, then the mill rate has to increase because the debt service payments are set.
So something to keep in mind is Mr. Barrow's presentation he just gave you of all the deferred maintenance that we have. Some pretty big systems, HVAC, boilers, water heaters, things like that. So just keep those things in mind.
Why is the state aid decreasing, you said, on the?
Part of it is the across the state, as the valuation per pupil goes up, state aid goes down. And so as enrollment declines, valuation per pupil goes up. And so that's the formula across the state.
Any other questions for Ms. Maddox? Thanks, Beth.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to item 12, strategic plan highlight. Dr. Barble?
How long are you planning? I need to use the restroom. Can we call for a break, or do I just need to excuse myself?
Anyone else need to go? Just go for 5. We'll take a recess from until 8:05.
Thank you.
All right, since you both returned, we'll reconvene a minute early. So moving on. Where was that? Strategic plan highlight. Dr. Barble.
All right, hello everyone again. So wanted to talk through our school discipline update. And as you all know, we started some heavy work a couple years ago. So just wanted to kind of go through what we've done, where we're at, and then where we're heading next. So once again, this is going to be really focusing on student engagement and support services, but really impacts all areas of our life and what we do here. So where have we been? So as you all remember, or hopefully remember, back in 2024, we embraced creating a behavior task force that was consistent of 31 staff members from across the district. Every building was represented in that task force. It contained 18 general education teachers, 6 administrators, 4 BCBAs, 2 school psychologists, and 1 coach. Through that process, we had 3 goals. One was to come up with some type of system that was across the board for classroom management. Given the transiency and the number of transitions our students have in our district, we wanted to create one flavor of ice cream, if you will, so that when a student would go from David Brewer to Henry Leavenworth, they didn't have to learn a whole new system, and then they would go to the intermediate and then have to learn a whole nother system. We really wanted to try to create some consistency across the different buildings for that. We also, our goal was also to create some systems and supports to help support our students as well as our staff. And so with that, we adopted Safe and Civil Schools approach. If you remember, we looked at 3 different systems: Safe and Civil, Conscious Discipline, and then a program called COMP. And these were our results, breaking out those components. And the blue bar is Safe and Civil, followed by Conscious Discipline in red, and then COMP in the yellow. And you can see overwhelmingly, once again, Safe and Civil Schools was the choice of the task force. And so we adopted Safe and Civil. So we met that goal. We adopted a variety of different behavior supports. We developed a behavior continuum for students, a behavior matrix, if you will, to help staff know when to do referrals, when to say help, like I need help now, I'm pushing my strategic badge, I'm getting immediate help, etc. So we put those together for the staff. So we met that goal as well. And then we also put in place for the fiscal year 25 or fiscal year 26, we adopted for our KISA accreditation goal, creating school-based behavior plans so that every school has this is how David Brewer does it. This is how Henry Leavenworth does it. This is how Lawson does it, high school, etc. So every school has their own school-based behavior plan that looks unique to them, so that it goes from everything from what expectations are to how they handle their referrals to what their consequences are to structured lesson plans, etc. Each document's usually for every building's about 125 to 150 pages long of here's everything that we're doing, and it's constantly updating. And so we did meet that goal as well for our KISA accreditation. So our current reality. So I went back in time just a hair. And so that blue is the fiscal year 24. So this was kind of where we started prior to Safe and Civil implementation, prior to discipline or behavior matrix, prior to all of the things that we put in place that year. So the blue bar is fiscal year 24. So that would have been the 23-24 school year. The red bar is the year of implementation and beginning implementation. So that would be your 24-25. And then yellow is representative of this past school year. So when we look at this here, this is referrals. And so these are going to be times when a student's misbehaving in the classroom and the teacher submits a referral to the administrator via the kickboard system and or calls the administrator. And if they can't get to the system, then the administrator is putting that data in to make sure we capture that. But these are not suspensions. These are just times that, hey, I need help. Johnny's having trouble in my class. Johnny's not following directions. Johnny is in a fight, whatever that might be. We're documenting it in the system. So you can see when we implemented Safe and Civil, we had that big decrease. We were very excited about that. And then we had an uptick this last year, a big uptick this last year. Comparatively, we are still lower than we were the first year prior to implementation, but we did see that large rise. A portion of that, when I went out and tried to receive some feedback about that, is we did see more behaviors from students, more intense types of behaviors from some of our students. But we also believe that some of that was staff members were more comfortable actually utilizing the system, whereas the year of implementation is implementation. Everybody's learning the system. Everybody's like, I don't know what, like they're still trying to learn it, feel comfortable and confident with it, those types of things. Whereas this year, everybody had it, our paraprofessionals had it, everybody was all in on that system. And so we do believe that also could have contributed to a piece of that uptick. And then this is a breakout by the buildings. And so you can see each building, once again, represented by the same color scheme. And so you can see a couple buildings really increased the number of their referrals. A couple had just little upticks. Anthony actually decreased significantly from 562 down to 401. So that was exciting to see. Some of the buildings, like I said, had small little changes, but really the middle school and high school had the largest changes. So then we'll look at incidents. So incidents is really what I focus our attention on, because that is where we're capturing ISS and OSS. So ISS is being removed from your general education setting and placed in a classroom with an instructor, and then your work to make up, but you're away from your general education peers, not allowed to be transitioning throughout the day. OSS is being sent home and you're not accessing the general education students, you're not on campus, etc. So the reason why I want to really focus on this is we did see that decrease from our year of implementation, and then we saw a large increase this past year. But I want to focus on it too, because there's been a lot of feedback this past year that we have not disciplined kids, that we are not suspending kids, but that's not what our data shows. Our data is showing that we are suspending kids, we are disciplining kids. Doesn't mean that that's at the rate we should be. No, maybe we need more, but I do want to make sure that that is portrayed there, that we have not, just said, no, don't suspend kids, no, don't discipline, no, don't do those things, because that's not what our data shows. And this is what was submitted to the state. And so this was our building breakout once again. So you can see that Lawson had a large increase proportionally to, they went from 3 to 32. That's a large increase for a small building. David Brewer continued to decrease throughout the years. Henry had a small uptick. Anthony significantly decreased again. The intermediate center had a large uptick. The middle school nearly doubled their suspensions, and the high school not doubled, but close to doubled their suspensions as well. And the Third Avenue had a quite a bit of an uptick as well in their suspensions. So I just wanted to make sure that we had that information out there, that it wasn't lack of suspensions. Once again, I can't say whether there should have been more, but we definitely, our data shows that we did have an uptick in those, and we have to try to figure out what can we do to help resolve that. This is also our discipline data utilizing some of our safe and civil tools in our walkthroughs. So that behavior, that basic 5 behavior benchmark is something that's really important, something that's really embedded within safe and civil. And so as our administrators go and do walkthroughs in the classrooms, teachers would receive feedback on this, their instructional practices, etc. But one of the different pieces that we're looking for is time on task. So when I go in and watch a classroom, what I want to see in order to get into that light category, which is where we want kids and classes to be, is I want to see at least 90% of the students on task. And so if I go into the classroom and if 90% or more of those students are on task during my observation, that's going to be a light. If it's 80 to 89%, that's a medium. If it's anything under 80%, that gets marked as a dark. So you can see there, really, we didn't have a lot of classrooms where there was a large number of portions of students that were off task. Most of our classrooms did fall within that 90 to 100% on task. The next one is opportunities to respond. So as an administrator, I go in and I'm watching. What I'm watching for with opportunities to respond is within a 10-minute segment of instruction, best practice would say students have 40 opportunities or more to respond. So what I'm watching for is how many opportunities are kids in the classroom having to express their knowledge, say what the answers are, practice, etc. So this is an area that we do have room to grow. So while we did have 318 classrooms that met that criteria, we had a significant portion of classrooms that did not. So that will be something that we continue to work with our staff on, is how do you get those opportunities to respond? How do we make sure that those things are happening so kids can express their knowledge, we can diagnose what's going on, those types of things. Your ratio of interactions is looking at your ratio of positive to negative interactions between staff and student. So best practice would be no less than 3 positive interactions for every 1 corrective interaction. So if I say, Johnny, you need to sit down, that's a correction. So then best practice would say that I should have 3 positive interactions within my time watching that. So that could be a thumbs up, pat on the back, great job, love what you're doing, glad you're here. Any type of positive interaction to build that piggy bank up, not with that student per se, but with the whole class. So when we looked at that, 306 classes, we were able to see that ratio. And then we had some fall into the 153 medium, and then we had a few that were below that. Then disruptions, which is this one I'm really excited about. So disruptions is when I go in and watch a classroom, were there excessive disruptions that were happening in the classes, specifically looking at fewer than 5. So if I'm standing there for 10 minutes during 10-minute observation, I'm watching for fewer than 5 disruptions happening in class, because when disruptions happen, kids can't learn. And so a majority of our classrooms were not being disrupted. So we were very excited to see that. And that means that learning is able to happen. It's much, much better than what we had a couple of years ago. And then the last one is alignment to expectations. And so what that's looking at is, am I going to a classroom and I'm observing, is what the teacher says her expectations are, is that what I'm seeing actually happening? So if the teacher says that it is, we're independent work time, if you need help, raise your hand. But I see when Johnny needs help, he goes up to the desk. That's not aligning with what the expectation says. Or if it says it's independent work time, but we're doing whole group instruction, once again, that's not aligning with what the expectation says. So we're looking for that alignment, because kids can't perform for us if they don't know what our expectations are and they don't align. So with most of our classrooms, we did see alignment with what the teacher asked for, with what they were actually doing in the classroom. And then when we looked at that implementation fidelity of CHAMPS as a whole, we had 85% of our classrooms that were following CHAMPS. And that was out of, I believe, one second, let me get the number. That was out of 1,195 walkthroughs this year. So that was exciting to see. Obviously, still room to grow. We like these 90, 95%, but that's exciting growth. So then where are we heading next? Knowing that we have a lot of things that we've put in place, and we're seeing those suspensions continuing to rise. And we are hearing from our families that students are having more and more behavior. Families are not happy with the amount of behavior. Teachers are not happy with the amount of behaviors that they're seeing. So how are we going to support? How are we going to move forward with helping staff and helping students? So the first thing we have is a discipline matrix. So you hear me say behavior matrix. We did that. That was our pre-work. Behavior matrix is, if Johnny is disruptive, here's what the teacher should do. This is a office referral. This is a, this is an emergency, immediate, like administrator's gonna come get this kid. This is a call home type situation. It kind of laid those groundworks out. The discipline matrix takes it a step further and provides some level of transparency to students on what happens when these behaviors happen, as well as to families, the community, and then provides guidance to administrators to make sure that we are following a somewhat on the same page with discipline, et cetera. So what we did was we looked at the top behaviors this school year, and we developed those, the matrix around those top behaviors. So our top behaviors that we developed this matrix for first, we're going to be eloping from the classroom. So that'd be, I left without permission, I left the building without permission. Those are what we call elopements. The next one was skipping class and tardies, followed by physical aggression. And then the last was disruption, defiance, insubordination, kind of all coupled into one. So those were our top 4 offenses, if you will, across our school district. So we felt like we wanted to tackle those first. Let's get those numbers down. And then if something else rises, then we'll continue to build out this matrix to help support those behaviors. And so the matrix really lays out what the behavior is. So in this case, this is elopement. So it lays out what the behavior is, the first response. So the first time this happens, here's what the administrator is doing. Here's what the team is doing. We're making sure we're documenting it. The staff should be reteaching to the student, like, this is not how you leave the classroom. Like, here's how you need to ask for help. This is how you get out of a situation, etc. There should be a teacher-parent contact, so the parent knows, hey, your child left my classroom or the building without permission. And then any type of admin parent contact that's needed, especially when students are leaving the building. Typically, admin are calling at that point to the parents to say, hey, here's what's happening. We got to come up with a plan. So that's your first response. Then we have a repeated response. So that's going to be a patterns being developed. So this is the day that Sarah maybe in the past 2 weeks has eloped 3 or 4 times. That's a pattern that we're developing. It's a continuing behavior. So now here's all the things that we're going to do to help support that child and or discipline for that child. So that could be obviously ongoing documentation. We want to make sure we have that. We will be developing a safety plan for the student. A parent will need to come in for a meeting with us, getting that student tiered interventions. The student likely will probably need a behavior plan at that point to help kind of negate some of those behaviors. We may be looking at restitution when appropriate, and then also in school, out of school suspension, depending on the situation. And then we've got a final category, which is our chronic, or what we're calling non-responsive. And so that's going to be when it's just constantly happening. We have definitions for when it kind of hits each one of those statuses. Once again, documentation. We're making sure that we have continued revisions of the plans that we are doing. We don't just say, well, here's the plan. We don't do anything different. We're going to continue to try to help support this child. We don't give up on kids. We have a comprehensive team review. That's the staff, the family, the admin, etc. Referral to outside resources when needed. Maybe they need connection to the guidance center or Riverside Resources or some other connection to somebody that they don't have, so we can help support that. Some of our students may go on administrative probation, and then we are entering into progressive discipline at that point, which is in school, out of school suspensions, could be potential of a long-term suspension, expulsion, etc. We did make sure to put caveats in there because there are protections for students with disabilities, so we want to make sure that that's documented. That guidance is also laid out in there as well to help support. So we're hopeful that maybe being transparent, trying to create some more consistency across the district will help support with some of our responses for behavior.
Do we have anything set in place that we're making sure all of our buildings are going to be on track with this one documentation and this is our expectations? Because if we're not getting it across to them, how do they get it to families?
Yep, that's a great question. So it's we've put it in our student handbooks, and then the admin were part of building this out. So all the admin were building this as we did it. So this was not Rebecca Varvel's document. Like, we really made this a collaborative process to really get everybody's input, and really, I mean, there was a lot of in-depth discussion about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate over these different things. So everybody's very aware of this, and then there will be training for our admin on what this looks like, so that way they can implement it effectively, including what does documentation look like, etc. Great question.
And regarding the disruptions, defiance, and insubordination, what are examples of those?
So, for example, disruption could be I'm pounding on the desk. The teacher asks me to stop. I stop. Great, we're done. But some of our kids will continue to pound on the desk, or they get redirected, and then that might mean that now I'm up and I'm moving around in the classroom. And these are not our kids that have ADHD and they just, they need to get up and move. These are my kids that then now I'm like, I might swipe that off of the desk because I'm trying to get attention. I'm going to move this thing over here. I'm going to do this over here. So like, it's that constant disruption. Insubordination would be, we've had some kids that it's like, they won't go to class. And so it's, Johnny, I need you to go to class. No, I don't want to go to class. Well, you have to go to class. Like, the expectation is we go to class, and they just refuse to go to class. So that would be like an insubordination type of situation.
And some of them seem like older students. I know maybe physical aggression could be a younger student, but are there more or different ones for younger kids, or no? Or is it not an issue?
So these 4 behaviors were the top 4 behaviors in every building, pre-K through grade 12.
So skipping school?
Yep. And when you look at skipping school and tardies, we put into the same category. We do have elementary kids that will not go to class, and they end up being marked tardy. They just refuse to go to class. It's not as common at elementary.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I'm again curious to see how, with the 5th graders going back to elementary, how that might look with them rotating between classes, how that might project itself coming up. So that's something we're planning for.
And I'm just curious, I think when I thought of behaviors too, was more academic as well. So like not completing their homework or not working on their homework, or I don't think they call it homework anymore. Classwork, real time. That's not included anything academic in there.
So that is not something that would be like directly on here. So like, if you have a kid that is not completing their classwork, but they're not being disruptive, maybe the kid puts their head down, that's on our behavior matrix. It's going to give teachers strategies to be trying with the student. But at this point, that was not one of our top 4 behaviors that came through. So we're going to continue to handle those. Not saying we're not handling those behaviors. We are. It's just that we've not done an in-depth matrix for those students. Now, if let's say that these behaviors wane, and let's say that one of those behaviors rise to the top, then we'll be adding that for our matrix piece for them the following school year.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, the next thing is, so our KESO work, once again, our accreditation work for this current school year was to create systems alignment between behavior supports, resources, our SECD standards through the state, and then our lessons. So that first page there is our behavior supports page. That's not new. We have that's already connected to our behavior matrix, where a teacher can click on any behavior and it will give them an entire list of, here's all these things that you can try to help support this kid. So that continues. We've now tied into that, though, what SECD standards address that specific type of behavior. And then what resources do we have, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, to help that student be successful. So if it's elopement and the teachers tried things and they move into tiered intervention, then it might be that we're going to use the Mind Up curriculum, and here's specific lessons that we're going to pull out to address that behavior with that student. Then we also have aligned lessons that we can do class-wide or small group-wide that are scripted. So it can be done by a teacher, it could be done by a paraprofessional, a building aide, anybody, a volunteer can pick it up and read the script as a way to teach those behaviors and those positive things that we want to see in classrooms that address, once again, each one of those behaviors. The next thing is we opened up our Kickboard parent portal this last school year. We are going to continue with that for this school year, and we're going to do a hard push to make sure parents are informed, that they have it on their phone if they want it, that they can access it on the website if they want to access it on the website. So as you know, we adopted this a couple years ago. So staff members can put in student referrals to the office. They can put in just general behaviors, positive behaviors, as well as negative behaviors. And then the parent portal allows parents to be able to track that in real time. So for example, if this was my student, I could see on August 21st that the student skipped class at 9:54, missed 15 minutes of class. Then I could see at 9:53 that the student had been sleeping, but at 9:52, the student had been given a positive reward. So the student was following expectations. If the behavior person in me would say, maybe when that student was maybe told, hey, you're doing a great job following expectations, that made the student embarrassed, maybe. And then that student decided to engage in behaviors. But as a parent, so when I've got my phone, if the teacher's entering any of those things in, I get real-time notifications to say, hey, Riker followed directions in class. Oh, hey, Riker did not follow directions in class. So when I see him when he gets home, then I can say, buddy, what was going on? Like, I know in real time what's going on in class now, whereas before they did not.
And what are some of the examples there teachers are entering? I guess you gave a few there.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that they're entering regarding behaviors?
So everything in Kickboard is aligned directly with our behavior matrix. So every negative behavior is listed in there, as well as all sorts of positive ones, following our CHAMPS expectations. It's got all of our characters, traits of the month. So each one of those are in there. Some of the schools follow their own different types of like slogans and things like that. So those things might be built in there. And so the students, the teachers can award students positive things. They can also do the negative. And then they also have, you can see here, like got Pioneer Bucks that are tied to it. I don't think the secondary used that as much this year, but the elementaries did. And so they would earn money that then they could go and spend at their school store and be able to take that out. So as a parent, you'd be able to see like, oh, Johnny bought something that was $50. Like, I'm gonna ask Johnny, hey, like, where'd you get those $50 today? Once again, just trying to be as transparent as we can about what's going on in those classrooms.
And is there a place for internal comments, or is everything external and the
Yeah.
parents can see everything?
So what the parents can see would be like this teacher, for example, put in this missed 15 minutes. So that's what the parent's going to see. That's all that the teacher's putting in. When the administrator gets that referral, the administrator could put in like met with the student on XYZ date. They don't see that information, but they see any of this information.
Gotcha.
But that is part of their recorded record in the system.
And how are they inputting it? Is it on their Pioneer's laptop or?
So this is all accessible through PowerSchool. So you can access it any way that you can access PowerSchool, whether that's on your school device, on your school laptop. It could be on the smartboard. It could be on an iPad. You can access it off of your phone. It's not required by any staff members. Some staff members have chose to do that just as they would their school email or any other type of Parent Square, any other school programming that we would have that they can access. This is something that they can access through there if they do choose.
Okay, and the teacher's input, I'm sorry, they're using their own personal device, their own cell phone?
So they have the option to, but they also have the option to put it on using their school device, etc. So I think some staff members have chose to use their personal device because if they're out at recess, they don't want to hold they don't want to have their computer out with them, so that they're typing it in on their personal device. But like I said, it's the same type of access for your email and everything else as well.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
But it's not a requirement that they use their own personal device.
Thank you.
Yes.
In the implementation of this, does it just become, are you finding that with staff, it's becoming more natural or what? Because when I see all of this, I know, I'm thinking, well, it's that age old, do you want to save the patient or document the vitals? And that's what I worry about, like or does it just become like if everybody's using the same system, it becomes more natural and more, because I look at this and I'm not in the classroom and I'm like, holy cow, are we
doing any teaching or we're
Yep,
just
yep.
documenting?
It becomes, that's a great question. It becomes natural. It becomes second nature, just as the old paper referral form where, if I was a teacher, I'd be walking around as I'm trying to teach class school, filling out the referral form. It becomes part of what you do. It has been an adjustment. I think many teachers would tell you that it's been an adjustment, but most teachers now, when I talk to them, like, it's just part of what they do. And so, some teachers are some teachers are very detailed. Some teachers just are clicking it and moving, click and move and click and move. But most staff are becoming very fluent in what they're doing.
And when you're saying click and move, they're just selecting?
All you have to do is click on Johnny's name and you can select, follow Champ's expectations, or click on Johnny's name. And you can also do class wide. So if I'm watching the whole class and the whole class is doing an amazing job, I can click whole class and submit that. So I don't have to click every single kid. I can do like a whole row, like a row of kids. I can do those types of things as well to help support that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've also continuing to offer professional development. One of the pieces of feedback we have received from our staff is they want more PD on things like trauma-informed care for students. They want more PD on working with intense behaviors for students, and then also looking at de-escalation and behavior management techniques. So what we've done is Safe and Civil Schools has allowed us to decrease a lot of the basic classroom management concerns we had. And now we are seeing those more significant behaviors arising, and staff don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to do when the kid refuses and tips their desk over. They don't know what to do when the kid's yelling and screaming and won't stop. They just don't have the tools. They don't know what to do when Johnny's been displaced the night before, is now in foster care and is having a meltdown because he's dysregulated. Staff just don't know what to do. So they're asking for that PD. So we've been trying to embed that a little bit last year, or this past school year in our PD sessions. This summer we offered through Greenbush. Greenbush came out and offered a free day training for our staff members. We had several that utilized that. And then we are planning several evening workshops that staff members can come to, paras, teachers, subs, et cetera, can come to get information, can get training, et cetera, on all of these types of strategies. And then we're going to start incorporating more parent opportunities as well. So once again, building those community connections. And then we're also currently working on, if you remember many years ago, Love and Logic. Some of us took that as parents. We're offering some Love and Logic evening workshops for parents to be able to gain some parenting strategies to help their skills at home. Because we're also hearing that from parents is, I don't know what to do with my child. So like, I hear you're struggling at school with them, but like, I also am struggling at home and I don't know what to do. So please help me. So we're going to try to help that as part of that early intervention and or helping families be successful with their kids, because it takes a village to run them. And then the last couple things that we are currently tracking for discipline is indicator 4. So indicator 4 is a state indicator that we have been marked non-compliant on for the past several years for special education. It's strictly related to too many students with special education being suspended. And so we have continued to be through a file review process. We have to submit students. We have to review our processes and procedures, et cetera. And so with this last go around, we did all of those things, as well as we were then required to meet with KSDE and do a collaborative review where we submitted anything and everything that we had that we've done to support students and behavior, discipline, et cetera. They reviewed it beforehand and then they met with us to provide suggestions. They had nothing to say to us because they were so impressed with our work. They're like, we see that your discipline's up, but like, they just didn't have a lot of anything to provide us. Like, why don't you look at this? Or can you do this? Or you need to scrap that. They were very impressed with all the work that we've done. Much so to the point that they've asked, like they're asking us to come present to other districts because they're just so impressed with everything. So that was the nice light, if you will, like, yes, you're getting dinged on indicator 4, but you guys are doing a lot of great things in your district. And the other thing that we are adding is looking at our MTSS systems. So students that need that tier 2, tier 3 supports, those more intensive plans in SPED Track, which is our IEP system. We also house our 504s in there. We do all of our progress monitoring data in there. We've adopted their MTSS module as well. So before, we just had Google Forms, we had all the documents, and things were just very, could be disjointed if you were not on top of those things. Kids would move out and come back, and those records would be lost, and we'd have to try to find them. Everything will be housed out of the system, but it will also allow us to be able to have greater oversight about the number of students that are getting tiered intervention, looking at that data from a district lens, looking at it more holistically from a building lens, and trying to help diagnose and figure out what's going on and how best to support our schools, our students, our families, et cetera. Any questions?
And just lastly, if a parent wanted to see the comments about their student, what would be the best way? And all comments?
Yeah, we could just pull them out of the system. It'd be in an Excel spreadsheet because it would pull out just like that, and we'd be able to see those across time.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard.
So when you talk about suspensions, is that a combination of in-school and out-of-school suspensions?
Yes, the state looks at them the same regardless. I mean, I know we know that they're different, but the state treats them the same across the board.
And are you also doing expulsions in that group?
Yep. And so those expulsions kind of flow into, still count as OSSs in the system, but yes, they are tracked in there.
Well, I know an expulsion goes considerably longer. Usually if that's after the beginning of the year, they're gone the whole year. Is there a way we can see the breakdown for what you have for in-school versus out-of-school?
Yep.
And the expulsions? And of course, without names, who would be the ones that are tending to have the majority of those? Like you've got 5.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, I can do that. Anything else? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Marble. All right, moving on to item 13, board work sessions. Dr. Riddleberger, do you have information you want to use for that, or just general
We
discussion?
do have strategic plan updates for if you want to do the next board, if you want to do a special or not a work session, board work session. We do have strategic plan updates. We have some items that we can share with you.
Okay.
If that's still the desire of the board.
Okay. I guess for the item that is in consideration is that for board work sessions, do we want to continue the 4th Tuesdays? And if we have topics, we get that information because they'll be focused. They're short meetings because they're specific topics. Or do we wish to change something with that?
I wish to keep them the same. And I think we should have the work sessions because that's good education for us.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
As long as there's relevant information to receive, yeah.
Okay. Is the 4th Tuesday still work for
And how
everyone?
do we determine ahead of time if the information's relevant?
That's one of the things we'll be working with Dr. Riddleberger as we go forward, like what needs to be brought out or what questions we've had from board members. Like if there's consensus of board members that want information on a topic, that obviously is something we'll present through one of the work sessions, depending on time too. It may be a board issue item, but anything else question-wise, discussion? Do we need to vote or just do we have a consensus?
They're already you already have them scheduled, so.
It wasn't part of the resolution for me to time, so.
All right.
Need to make a motion.
All right.
But I'll offer any time.
All right, so
I move that the USD 453 Board of Education have a special study session scheduled for the 4th Tuesday of every month at 5 o'clock. Topics to be discussed to be determined.
So the next one will be July 28th.
It says August 28th.
Or, yes.
And
What's
when
the
I'm
next one?
looking at the August calendar, August 28th is a Friday.
This is the superintendent evaluation requirement things, not the special.
So the 28th is a Tuesday, be the 4th Tuesday of the month.
July.
So July.
July 28th.
Okay.
right, the dates that were pretty much there are for the evaluation for the superintendent. So that's just letting you know the dates that will be coming for that. All right, so Mr. Darling has a motion. Anyone for a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor? 7-0, thank you.
Sorry.
So, 4th Tuesdays, Beth? Okay. All right, moving on, item 14, Kansas Association of School Boards Policies Update. This is a first read. Is there anything else we need to be aware of? No? Okay. When do you need input from everyone, if there is going to be input?
When do we want to do that for? If this is first reads, August?
Like August.
Could we? July 28th, okay? I just put all the other things and edits.
Yeah.
Have it done in time for the August board meeting.
So if you have comments on the first read, please let Superintendent/Ms. Maddox know by the 28th of July. All right. Item 15, the 2026-2027 annual conferences.
So you have there listed the board conferences that are available to you. The fourth annual KSBRC conference is October 1st at Wichita State University. The KASB annual conference is held November 6th through 8th at the Hyatt Regency in Wichita. And then you have the NSBA conference that will be held Friday, April 2nd through Sunday, April 4th in Washington, D.C. If you have desire to go to those, I would please ask for you to let me know. Do know that those come with a cost to the district's budget, but I would need to know those so that we can get you accommodations in a timely fashion.
Believe KSBRC does not have a cost. I think
There'll
that
be
one.
travel reimbursement, those
There's
kinds of.
travel reimbursement sometimes with the time they stayed overnight to get there and then do whatever.
Okay.
I didn't know that because I only went to one.
Any questions on that? You can just email me if you wish to go to one of those.
Alrighty. Item 16. So upcoming meeting dates, 20 July, the admin return. Yay. That's the official start of all the school things for the year. August 4th through 6th, the new teacher academy at the high school. We'll be expecting board members there for the opening ceremonies. If you'll make sure we have the information, please. 12 August for convocation. Does that start at 11 or is that the benefits fair at 11?
Benefits fair starts at 11. Convocation is 8:30. At 8:30 start.
Okay, 8:30 convocation. All right. 13 August is back to school night for kindergarten, 1st through 5th grade and 6th through 8th grades. There's tiered times. The 17th will be new student orientation and building PD. And the 18th is the first day of school. Wow. Our next board meeting will be the 10th of August and the LHS open house will be the 25th of August.
You have your special board meeting.
And now our special board meeting will be the 28th of July.
28th of-
Did we decide on a time?
Those are 5 to 7.
All right. Any other questions on the meeting dates or times? All right, moving on to the unscheduled patron input. I have Ms. Miller.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Miller. I'm the LNEA president and librarian at the high school, and I'll have a freshman this year. I wanted to welcome Dr. Riddleberger officially as her first meeting, so we're excited to have you, and we wish you the best of luck. And welcome Ms. Williams, who's going to be working in the communications capacity, so that's exciting. We wanted to thank all the custodians and the maintenance and the grounds crew and everybody who's been working hard all summer. We know our buildings will look great when we get there. And as you know, when we have the next board meeting, it'll be the first day that teachers are back. So it'll be a busy day and we may not have the chance to be here that evening. So we wanted to make sure to acknowledge that. I wanted to also just draw attention to, make sure I don't go over on my time. I'm sorry. Thank you. The issues that were brought up with the budget tonight, I think just really illustrate why we have to pay very close attention to what's going on to Topeka. And as was said, advocate for funding for our students, for our districts, for everybody across the state, because that's certainly an issue, that is impacting us directly. And I think that Dr. Varpel did an amazing job of illustrating that with the SPED presentation. I cannot imagine the amount of time that took. I learned a lot and I just wanted to commend her. I think that was an excellent job. Also, it just blows my mind the amount of work that people have to do. I mentioned Dr. Varvel, all the things that you rattled off that Beth would be doing this year, and Mrs. Troyer and everybody. I'm just grateful for all of the work that everybody has to do, and that they're willing to do it, and that they're willing to do it with us here in Leavenworth. So, anyway, I think that was it. I didn't intend to speak, but those things just really kind of struck me, and I wanted to make sure to bring that up. So, We'll see you on August 10th, hopefully, and August 12th for convocation. And it's always a good day to be a pioneer. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to board comments. We'll start with Ms. Brown.
Just wanted to remind our families and students, to obviously enjoy their summer and make the most of the time. I'm excited to hear, hopefully, if they're reading this summer, learning a new language or hobby, or traveling, we would love to hear at the board what's going on and how you can take that into the classroom. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Just same thing, finish off your summer strong. And we'll see you guys soon back inside sessions. And thank you for all you guys that do amazing things. And just great day to be a pioneer.
So Ruby?
First, I want to sincerely thank the board and the district for giving me the opportunity to serve as your board president this past year. To say I learned a lot would be a massive understatement. If I remain on this board, I'd love the chance to serve in that position at some point in the future. I thought long and hard about my votes for our reorganization tonight, and I'm sure my votes surprised some people. But looking ahead at the next year and all we have to accomplish with finding a new superintendent and restructuring for our long-term financial viability, I believe we've got a strong leadership team in place to work with Dr. Rettelberger. It's my hope that we will proceed with clarity of mission, no nonsense and no drama, working together as a team of 8 to improve our district and help our students to be successful. Congratulations to you, Judy, and to you, Doug. We will be all leaning on your experience and your attention to detail, Mr. Darling, to keep us on track and focused. And I stand ready to support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Murphy?
I want to thank everybody for all the work they are doing on the schools right now. I know it's a little bit chaotic, especially when you're around 20th, going around the high school and all the detours. It's not fun. And 10th and Limit and everywhere else they've had blocked off. Please be safe. Be in the habit of being safe, because it's going to be just about a month, and the kids are going to be crossing those crosswalks while all this chaos is going on the street. So be conscientious of them. We don't want to have anybody getting hit or anything like that. I want to remind people, because there seemed to be some confusion this last week or something. There's only 2 powers a board member has. That is their voice, and that is their vote. No single board member can change anything. And where it has come that people think they can, they can't. We can go into food pantries and we can volunteer. We can help out with community things. But as to getting anything done on our own, we cannot. It takes a vote of 4 minimum. So I wanted to clarify that too. Dr. Rettelberger, welcome in the new seat. And I look forward to seeing what some of your anticipated plans are for us. Congratulations, Judy and Doug. I've worked with both of you all before, so I know everything will be fine, as it's always been. We always don't have to agree. And I'll say it again. We all do not have to take Highway 70 to go to Kansas City. Some of us may have another route in mind, and that's not a bad thing. And thank you.
All right. Ms. Wells?
Welcome in this new capacity, Dr. Rettelberger. Again, thank you for your willingness to be at the helm. I hope that we as a board are able to give you clear guidance and direction to help keep us afloat to attract a permanent superintendent. So I appreciate your everything so far. Karen, I never imagined 3 years ago saying this, but I am impressed by you. Every single meeting that we have, the trainings that I've attended with you, I am grateful to have you on the board, and I appreciated you learning in the presidency over this last year. And I hope that you continue to grow in your leadership for future leadership within this board and outside of this board statewide. Doug, Judy, let's continue to behave appropriately to attract our next leader, and let's continue moving the board forward and keeping my mouth shut. Thank you.
Mr. Darling?
To shortstop Beth, we have documents to sign over there. Don't leave without them, or someone's going to have to track you down and drag you back. Let me just say dittos to a lot of the people that have already said things tonight. There's no need to repeat them. This is a job that is very important to the city and to our students most of all, staff secondly to that. And I thank you for the trust you put into me tonight. Let's go Pioneers.
All righty. First off, wow, thank you, everyone. I know that we don't always agree on what we're doing, but I appreciate your vote of confidence as we move forward. I look forward to working with you, Doug, and Dr. Whataburger. But I do have some welcomes and some thanks. So, Ms. Williams, thank you for stepping up as our new communications officer. Look forward to working with you. And Dr. Whataburger, thank you for stepping up to be the superintendent. And Karen, thank you for the last year. It was kind of a wild ride, but I learned a lot from you also. And I hope that you will continue to give me wise counsel. Oh, okay. Registration is still open. Please have your kids sign up. Get squared away. School starts in a month. I'm excited. I know not everybody's excited for school to start, but I am excited when we have a new year start. Thank you to Doug for reminding folks about the resolutions. You're now the official heavy. I will not do that again. And I do have two announcements to give out. These are sort of on a professional level. I've been reappointed by the Kansas Board of Regents to serve on the Blueprint for Literacy Advisory Board. I've served on there for 2 years already, and our scope has expanded with the recent unanimous vote of the House and the Senate to support Blueprint for Literacy, so more fun to follow. And then I've also been appointed by the Kansas State School Board to serve on the KSDE Professional Standards Board. That was a huge surprise to me being appointed, but I will start that position in September with our first official meeting. It's always a great day to be a pioneer, and I thank all of you to keep making it happen. Go Pioneers.